be secured into the ground, and it has to be surveilled by a camera. It's recommended by the Secretary of State. So I'm meeting with CCI tomorrow to determine what the cost of that would be. But surveillance on our parking lot might not be a bad thing. So what do you guys think about that?
I don't know. I'd like to think about that.
Okay.
Yes, Mr.
I
John.
have a comment.
Okay.
Secretary of State going to pay for it?
I don't know. I'm just nervous about. I guess we need to know more information. So I don't know. There's a decision we need to make tonight. It's what? When do the Greg with this?
The mailbox thing is being delivered on Wednesday. I just picked it up at the post office according to Loyan.
Yeah, and ballots are going to be.
Apparently,
delivered
decisions
today.
were made without our knowledge.
Well, I don't think there's a choice. I mean,
Quick question, so that ballot box will be there, people can just come in and drop it off, they don't need to come in here, they don't need to give it to her? Is that what that's for?
Yeah, they're going to
All
be
the way
dropping
up?
ballots off into the ballot box.
But not just for election day, this will be, instead of mailing them, they can come here and put them in?
Yeah, you can drive right up to it, stick it in there just like a.
Okay, so it's not a one-time, it'll be,
where's it gonna live?
It's going to live right out in the parking lot where that bush is, in between the two doors.
This doesn't sound good. This doesn't sound good. Okay? I'm just listening. And I'm hearing
Bush
this
by
all
the
the time.
tree, by
This
the old.
How do we know, like, that somebody can't, like, I'm a little
So
skeptical.
we're going to put it on by the handicap parking spot.
No, I'm skeptical of the whole process.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what the whole thing is about and why people can't mail their ballot back.
They can.
Okay, but I'm wondering if there'll be a surprise in there, like I
Yeah,
don't,
like a squirrel.
or something. I'm just
Eat all the ballots.
well, or destroy something, or
Oddly enough, there was a dead chipmunk in here this morning. And that was
odd.
very weird. It was just.
So there's no ballot box.
yeah, the squirrel didn't want to go on a ballot box.
So, we're gonna
The squirrels can vote too.
So what happened? Secure this thing? Is that what the case would be?
Yeah, and Florian's been in contact with you.
Well, she didn't give me the specs. I told her she's going to have to get a hold of a contractor because it's going to have to cut, wherever it's going, it's going to have to be a fairly big pad. I think it's 4 feet long by something feet long or wide.
Holy.
So I guess,
Can we send it back?
yeah,
I don't know if it's a grant.
I don't know
This-
if I
this
like
is still
any of
get
this.
Florian. Florian is an elected official, so she can do.
Yeah, well, wait a minute. We're dealing with ballots
Whoa,
and
whoa, whoa,
security. We've got the security. What, backhoe? 4 feet
whoa,
wide.
whoa, whoa. Elected officials can't just, I don't
So
think,
what
just
happens
do
if
exactly
somebody
what they
comes and
want.
slides their ballot into where they do now?
Well, that's fine, but.
We pick them up and put them in this box?
You're, then you're going to
You
be
can
worried
say, I
about
don't
being
know.
certified election.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, yeah, but the same is true with the box out in the yard that people might not know what it is. Hey,
Exactly.
or kids or something.
My McDonald's bags in it or something.
I have a technical question then, since it was brought up. I'm just curious. Can an elected official just make decisions and spend money and use town resources without the select board's authority, or?
I wouldn't think this deep. I would think on the ballots and that kind of thing maybe, but I don't know about construction and surveillance and things like that.
Well, that's what I'm
not sure
curious. So
about
it's going to
that.
be here Wednesday. Yeah, I'm not comfortable making a decision right now either, so it's going to.
Ballots are gonna be out, they're supposed to start arriving this week. Some people are.
Well, but the people that take the ballots out need to understand that it's their ballot and they need to bring it into the town office and maybe hand deliver it or whatever, take it over that way. Not throw it out in the parking lot in some box when people aren't
And
here.
to your point, John, I'm sorry, but if that was the case, then somebody knew about this beforehand.
I know.
I did know about it beforehand.
Okay.
Well,
And
not,
so-
not that much beforehand.
Well, I knew that the Secretary of State was giving us funding to purchase this ballot box. We learned about the other things after the ballot box was purchased
Okay,
and
I
was
got
being
it.
delivered.
How
And
long
then we
ago?
found that we may need surveillance
I got you.
and construction and all of this other stuff.
Another well thought out plan.
Yep.
How long ago?
Maybe a week.
Yeah, but not that long ago.
All right,
No,
so-
it hasn't been since the last board meeting. No.
So do you have a total cost of what all this will cost?
No, that's what we're going to learn soon, and then I can keep David informed. And if an emergency meeting needs to take place, we can call him.
I'm
to
just
that
a little
meeting.
nervous about the security of a person's right to vote in their ballot and has the correct name on it, and then the procedure of that, and what do you do with the ballot. I know down here, that there are guards around and they're very meticulous about this, about what's going on. I'm not convinced that would be the same out in some box
Well,
out in the parking lot.
Is the town
I mean,
clerk,
it could get wet, I don't know, it
Is
could get
the town-
something, I don't know.
town clerk here to talk about this at all, or what?
I don't believe the town clerk's on here tonight. I told her I'd chat with you guys about it.
Well, you can get the information and you're right on, so if you get whatever's going on and then we learn a little bit more about it, then we're gonna have to figure it out or whatever. When are have the ballots been printed? Question number one.
Yes.
Are the ballots available to go out to residents now?
I believe the ballots are being mailed or are in the mail. But I'll have to confirm that.
You know? Okay. So you don't know that either. That's okay. Because I knew they were in the process of getting printed
Yep.
and so forth. I didn't know the schedule about whether or not they were available for people to have yet. Yes.
If we're looking at a significant cost to mount this thing, and potentially we may say no to that, should we instruct this thing to right now just stay in its delivery box until we get through this? I mean, if we're not gonna use it, we're not gonna set it up, if we were to decide not to, is it best just leaving it in its box, gets delivered, put it in a corner somewhere, and wait until we move forward?
Well, I'm wondering about the burden of a voter. What is their burden, and why do we have to make a box out in the yard 4 feet deep and to accommodate
No, I
something
agree, I'm beyond that, I'm
that
just
they
saying,
know
I'm
about?
just
now?
talking about this thing being delivered in
Yeah.
its box, leave it in the box, don't touch it.
What happens when people start bringing ballots here after hours?
Well, that's the point Dave is making now,
I know.
what responsibility does a ballot have?
What do they do now?
What do they can slide them in the gold slot out there and they sit in an empty box?
In the drop box?
Yeah,
There you go.
Well, if
which
people
I have no problem
Or
with.
they can put it in a mailbox.
It's no different than mailing in an absentee ballot.
You know,
Has been for 100 years.
That's what I mean about the process.
With one exception, that I'm not aware of, I don't know the answer to. An absentee ballot, you would be responsible for putting a stamp on it, correct?
A sample.
A stamp. A
Stamp,
stamp. You
correct.
gotta buy a stamp to
Correct.
put on.
These
Because
come
this is
pre-
nationwide, these are coming postpaid.
Correct.
So you don't even have to buy a stamp, just put the thing in the envelope and mail it.
Yep. So why accept them at all in person?
No, why dump them in a box?
Why worry about this box?
Why?
Well, I think people are all upset because of all the publicity about the post office. You can't trust them, the machines are broke, and
I don't know.
Feels like a
Let's
knee-jerk
do what you suggested. We keep it in the box, and you learn more, Brandon. You learn more information about this, and then you get back to me, and I'll just email the board, or you can email the board, Paul.
Yeah, just quick question, do we have to send that box back, or once we mount it and keep it, will it be here forever and ever?
I believe, yes, it'll be
Here forever and ever?
until we want to.
Not have it, okay, so it's not back. Yep,
so, that's it.
that's what I wanted.
Did you have?
The last item is the Tenny Tree.
Go ahead. Yes, excellent.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
So this is another one that wasn't in my town manager report, but David and I felt it was urgent enough to put it in the town manager report in this meeting. Tonight we have a special guest from the State of Vermont Highway Division. I'm going to turn this over to Andrea Wright, Row and Environmental Program Manager, to discuss the Tenny Tree.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, my name is Andrew Wright, and I'm the right-of-way and environmental program manager at V-Trans. I've met some of you before. I came to a meeting close to a year ago now. So I just wanted to provide an update because I have recently heard from Lee Stevens of Stevens Forestry, the certified arborist that we've been working with, that he does not feel that the tree is in any state that can be repaired or cared for to prolong its life. And he says that it is more of a hazard than it was at the beginning of when we started talking, which, you know, was about a year ago. In November, he evaluated the tree and thought it was a hazard and should come down. And then we had an on-site meeting in early December, and he had a different take on it, thought that he could trim some limbs, give it some treatment, and potentially prolong the life of the tree. And then we started trying to get a sole source contract for the state, which took some time, and started working with him early March to get specifics on that contract. And of course, then the pandemic hit and things got slowed down. And we were kind of communicating sporadically between delays in the process. And then just heard from him early August, I believe it was, that he didn't feel with it, the way the hot summer went, that the tree was going to be able to be saved now. So I want to come back to the town. I know this was a very passionate topic for the citizens of the town, and we worked together to find an arborist, because V-Trans had an arborist do an evaluation that a lot of people in the town did not find favorable, and that's when we got Lee Stevens involved. So anyway, we're back at this point. I guess initially I'd like to get the reaction of the board to that news from Lee, and how you feel about that, realizing you just hearing about it now, but.
I did get a question from Ginger Wimberg, who headed up either the Historical Society or Conservation Committee, one or the other. She asked a few weeks ago about the status of it. So I mean, I've driven by it lately, and it looks like nothing was done, and you know, I know that the spaces were blocked off.
Right.
And I don't know that there's an easy answer, or any answer. So, you know, you've just shared us news with this Stevens information. So I guess we'd have to reach out to Ginger or a couple of other committees that were involved in that, and then let them know the news. Was there a timetable that you guys were, right away or anything was looking, is it like before snow or obviously or something? I mean, things have just been,
yeah, I think ideally we would like to contract other services. Lee Stevens is not interested in taking the tree down at this point. I think he was more interested as a certified arborist into measures to preserve the tree. At this point, he said we should just go along with contractors that we already have in place to do this. So he was not interested. I think we would like to get it down before winter, but it depends on how the town process goes. We can continue to, you know, keep those spots blocked off. It's definitely preferable to not have those blocked off during the winter, but if we need to, you know, have a process for the town that extends to the winter, I'm sure that we would be willing to do that again.
our next meeting is October 5th, I think it is. Is that right, Brandon?
Yes.
So why don't, between now and then, we reach out to the other committees to see. I know there were some questions about, even before, a year ago, if the tree were to be taken down, what would that mean? What it would be taken down to, or, you know, would it be 10 feet high? Would it be 10 inches high? Would it be 0? Or, you know what I mean? So there were some questions that came up about that too, so they may come back around, so.
Yeah, there definitely was. I'm trying to remember where the specific issues in the tree is. I know there's a rather large cavity on the back side of the tree that has a lot of growth in it, and I'm not sure what height that's at. I mean, we're certainly willing to work with the town or anybody in the town that would want the wood, and we could deliver it somewhere. So we're open to those suggestions. We still would like to move forward with a historic marker if that's something the town would like to see. And if there's no objection to it, I think the agency plans to move forward with that. So I think we had been talking with Ginger about that very preliminarily, I guess it was last winter.
John?
At the meeting at the fire station, I think I was one of the ones that was rather vocal about saving the tree. And I will say that when the leaves tried to come out this summer, that tree is in considerably worse shape than I think anybody thought. And I agree with Lee Stevens completely. It's not savable. There was some discussion of whether there were any saplings that maybe were offsprings of that tree on site. And I remember looking, and we didn't even see any of those, so maybe it hasn't produced seeds for a long time either. You mentioned the historical marker, and I was under the impression that was already in the works and wasn't waiting for any kind of action.
Yeah, we did start that process, and we were talking with the Department of Historic Preservation and got sort of the background on what that needs to be, because they're all, there's a standard process for what those look like. And so we did get that information, and then like I said, I can't remember exactly. I know it hasn't gone very far, but we were involving a couple of people from the town, and I think Ginger was one of them, but it has not, that process has not gone very far at this point.
Are there any other questions for Andrea from the board? Nothing? Brandon, do you have any? No. I know you're new to this, but it can take a little bit of a turn to touchy when this leaks out again, then it might come down. So there'll be some people feeling both ways, I'm sure. Mike?
I just a comment. In hearing this, I would focus on the safety issue that's at hand with winter coming. Supporting snow loads, may not be that safe either. Limbs are going to start dropping and falling. I know you got 8 parking lots blocked off now, but safety needs to be paramount here.
Right, and it was considered somewhat of a risk to just block off those 8 spots. Lee was a little bit more assuring that the tree itself wasn't in imminent danger to fall, but he certainly can't say that for sure. But the limbs were the big concern, and that's why we blocked off those 8 spots. But it's a large tree still. I think with the spots that we do have blocked off, the falling limbs and the snow load, hopefully the risk is minimized. But the tree itself, I don't know. I'd probably reach out to another arborist if we were going to consider keeping it any longer in the winter. I mean, I think the fact is that it is a risk, and it's not in good health, and Lee thought perhaps he could take some measures to prolong its life for, up to maybe another few years, but the end result would be the same at some point, that the tree would have to come down. So yes, some people will be very upset about that, and some people we've heard say, this is it, the tree has lived its life and it needs to come down. So there are people on both sides. Certainly, want to have the marker be participatory as well, and get people involved so that they see what it is and have some input on that end result. But it does need to come down. You're right, it is a safety risk.
At the fire department meeting, I made the statement that tree would outlive me, and I'd like to rescind that statement.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
And the tree itself could last quite a while longer. We don't know, but I think that the limbs were cabled. Some of them were cabled, and those have since failed. And we were going to try to recable or remove some of those ones that were in failure, but it's just Band-Aid approach until the inevitable happens.
Okay, you can keep in contact with Brandon. We'll notify anybody that we'll get the word out to see whether people want to have comment on October 5th, and then we'll take it up.
Okay.
Take it up at that time.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'd be happy to come back and talk to anybody that we need to, or let us know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'll see you now, I guess.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Is that it for your town manager report then?
Yes.
Andrea was last. Good. Let's go to the road grader financing. wanna take that? Grader? Yep.
So on March 3rd, the town of Weathersfield voted by Australian ballot to authorize the select board to borrow funds not to exceed $240,000 for a period not to exceed 7 years. And that was for the lease purchase of a new road grader. On July 20th, the select board authorized me to advertise a request for bid to furnish the town with an articulated all-wheel drive motor grader. Bids were due in our office on August 20th at 2 p.m. and a bid opening took place. 2 qualified proposals were received. On September 8th, the select board voted to purchase a 2020 Caterpillar 140 all-wheel drive motor grader with a 7-year, 7,000-hour premier warranty and a 5-year, 5,000-hour on-site service plan as defined in Milton Caterpillar's proposal number 2. On September 9th, I signed the sales order, which included our terms and conditions and tax exemption certification form. So the purpose of this report is to provide the best options we have to finance this equipment. Our administration has put together 6 options for select board review. Each option is on a separate page. So on option 1 is to finance $115,000 from People's Bank for 5 years. The total cost of the motor grader is $199,000. And under this option, we would use $45,000 from the FY20 surplus as a down payment. We would use $39,000 from cash for the service plan and warranty. And what this would do is alleviate any interest accumulating over a 7-year term. So no interest, there would be no interest on $89,000 of the total cost of the motor grader.
So where is the difference between the FY20 surplus and what you define as cash? Is that cash located in the highway?
So it's cash as Steve Heyer explained it to me is money that we have in our account. It's just cash.
But it's in the highway fund, not the
It
general.
would come from somewhere.
Well, we know where it comes from. Whoa.
But then it would be but then it would be expensed.
Forrest is laughing. Yeah, it doesn't come from trees. Yeah.
But then it would be expensed
It wasn't my garden.
to the highway budget annually, according to Steve Heyer. Steve Heyer couldn't make it to this meeting, but it would come from our cash, and then we would expense it to the highway budget annually. So we would expense 1/5 of the service plan to the highway budget annually, and then we would expense 1/7 of the warranty to the highway budget annually.
I don't, I didn't mean for that question to be funny, because what I want to do is get it right. And one of the things that we talked about at the last meeting was there's a difference between the purchase of the grader with the connected warranty, but we've never done a service contract that incorporates material that we would budget in each of the next 5 years. Everybody follow what I just said?
Yep.
So we have filters and oil that we're pre-purchasing, which is actually material for 5 years for this unit, which would normally come under the regular budgeted items. Now, how do you quantify that? My memory is $19,500 for that service contract for 5 years, right?
Yep.
So, and bear in mind the majority is oil disposal and labor, but still, I'd be willing to probably, so if you divide that by 5, you're looking at just under $4,000 a year for that. I guess I'd be willing to go out on a limb and say that it's probably $1,500 of material that we will no longer have to budget for, and the remaining would be labor.
My plan would be to lower the equipment, or the maintenance budget down.
By that
As
amount.
as an amount, whatever I can figure out as close as I can.
Yeah. And
I would
so,
plan on keeping
but we've
it.
not done this before, I do know this from experience. Normally, when you're dealing with highway monies, it comes out of the highway budget. I'm not sure that I want to do a dance about we have 30, or whatever it was, of cash somewhere. That cash or money that we're spending for highway has to come from highway.
Well, according to Steve Fire, it's a depreciable asset. So you depreciate it at 1/5 of its total value each year.
Then you line item it for 5 years.
Exactly.
So, do you have a question?
Money come out.
Actually, wait a minute, it's actually a prepaid expense, so it sits on the balance sheet as an asset, and we expense it 1/5 each year from the balance sheet to the P&L. It's not a depreciable expense as a service contract. That machine itself is, but what Steve's recommending is that you book a prepaid expense, and then 1/5 or 1/7 of it every year gets moved from the balance sheet prepaid to the expense highway budget.
And it was a 5-year service plan, but a 7-year warranty, so the warranty's kind of not, it's good, but the service contract means oil, filters, and material. Did you have a question, Ray?
I just had a comment, cash, so money can't go from highway and go to general fund.
Right.
Money can go from general fund and go to highway.
That's
So 2 years ago, when we paved Center Road, cash was borrowed from wherever Steve and whoever found the money. They got the money from money we were saving in places, and the highway department is paying that money back plus interest. We borrowed our own money. So I don't know if that's what Brandon and Steve are talking about or how that works, but I think, so cash can come from other general funds, but it can't leave highway to go there by law. It has to stay in highway. Sorry. Just clarity.
Okay, Brandon, keep running through some
Okay.
of these, and then we'll,
So-
I just wanted to make sure that I was trying to follow, that's all.
So, open a $115,000 loan at People's Bank for 5 years at 2.35% interest. The annual principal payment would be $23,000. The annual interest payment would be $1,400. The total principal is $115,000. The total interest is $7,000. By financing $115,000 for 5 years, the town will pay the least amount of interest and save the most amount of money long term. The annual payment will be the second least with this finance option, and the payments are only for 5 years rather than for 7 years. So if you look at the financial comparisons at the bottom, you'll see total interest paid per option, and that under each option that we review, it'll be highlighted in yellow. But these are all the options. It's the same for each page. So here you can see that we compared to option 6. By going with option 1, we'd be saving a lot of money in interest. So I think, in my opinion, this is the most, this is the best option long term. Option 2 is to finance $115,000 from People's Bank for 7 years at 2.55% interest. The annual, it's the same structure, so $45,000 from FY20 surplus as a down payment, $39,000 from cash for the service plan and warranty, expensing 1/5 of the service plan and 1/7 of the warranty to the highway budget annually. The annual principal payment is $16,428. The annual interest payment is $1,527. The total interest is $10,690. You can see this is the lowest payment option, so it would only be $17,955 annually, but the total interest is $3,690 more because it's over 7 years.
That's the third highest one for interest.
Yeah, the third highest one for interest, and the lowest per year. Option 3 is to finance $160,000 from People's Bank. We will not use any FY20 surplus, but we will expense the service plan and warranty to the budget, to the highway budget annually. This loan's for 2.35% interest. The total principal payment is $32,000. The annual interest payment is $1,948, and this is the second lowest interest at $9,740. By financing $160,000 for 5 years, the town will pay the second least amount of interest and save the second most money long term. The payment is the 5th highest, So out of the 6 options, this is the 5th highest payment. Option 4 is to finance $160,000 from People's Bank for 7 years at 2.55% interest. We would use $39,000 from cash for the service plan and warranty, expensing it to the highway budget annually. The annual principal payment is $22,857. Annual interest payment is $2,124. The total interest is $14,874. By financing $160,000 for 7 years, the town will pay the 5th least amount of interest and save the 5th most money long term. The annual payment is the 3rd least with this finance option. So we're paying a lot. We're doubling the interest from option 1 with this option. Option 5, finance $199,000 from People's Bank. So this is the total cost of the machine and the service plan and warranty. So we will not be expensing or using any surpluses with this option. The annual principal payment is $39,800. The interest rate is 2.35%. Total interest paid is $12,114. Again, almost doubling the interest. And this payment is the highest annually. So it's $42,222 with this option. In comparison to option 1, which was $24,000, so it's almost double the annual payment. The last option is option 6, finance the total cost of the machine warranty and maintenance plan. So $199,000, 7 years at 2.55% interest. The annual principal payment with this option is $28,428. The total interest is almost equivalent to 1 annual payment at $18,499. This payment is the 4th least, and this option has the highest interest rate. So that's everything I have for the board tonight for the motor grader.
Darlene, I got a couple of questions. Are you still on? Is she muted or not?
Sorry, I just was on the wrong thing to unmute.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What is the debt that the town has now for machines? And do you have a total of that, or no? Is it like fire trucks and so forth? I don't think it was too much. I don't recall, but.
It was in the last report. I think all we have is a plow truck that we bought my first year, so that was a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And we have a fire truck. And then we have Center Road. That's the only debt we have at the present time. And Center Road we borrowed from ourselves.
Okay. So, what do you, I know that you put all this in context, but I like to look at it in a bigger picture. This isn't a question for you, darling, but it's maybe for Brandon too. I know that you're all nervous about interest. And the whole report is geared towards that. But I'm not, because the interest is 2.5 or whatever it is. And I'm a little concerned about what else will need to be bought. So if you use up your money, for instance, and then the reserve account is 0, the next in line is going to bear the real hit on payments. So I just happened to put an arrow next to number 2 because I saw that it was a lower annual cost, and it still used some of the money. But
$6,045.
yeah, but
Annually.
But here's another thing that we all need to consider. If we use up the money of $45,000, which is half of the fiscal surplus in highway, and so that'll be gone, and $39,000 from cash from somewhere that I'm not sure where is, so that's a total of $84,000 that will be unavailable for us to use when we start going into the budgets. So it's kind of like when we buy a car or at our own houses, and you have that, you have $5,000 or $10,000 in your bank, and you say, should I spend that and give it to the dealer now, or am I gonna need a roof for my house? So to me, I know Brandon and I have talked, and he absolutely despises interest. But my entire life in interest swimming around on the farm.
Oh, you're broke.
Yeah, so, but my point is that we're gonna vote on using not a lot of money in somewhere right now, and it may come back to boomerang on us in 2 more months, and we get going the budgets, and we're gonna say, God, I wish I had that in my hand. Mike?
My thinking was sort of on that same line, but what I looked at, and by the way, I'm broke too, because of interest. But what I looked at was in the option 2, was the, for $3,700 more in interest, we saved $6,000 a year on a budget, in the budget for 5 years.
Yes,
That becomes available
for the payments.
for use for something else, as you were talking about. We would have $6,000 more available to us in a budget for those 5
For
years.
something.
Yes.
Ray,
For
do you
something.
have, without, I don't wanna put you on the spot, but I got a question.
Yeah, you do.
What's that?
Yeah, you do.
No, not really. So, a smaller truck, that doesn't bother me quite so much, I know, and everything bothers me, but I'm talking about bigger ticket things. So we're talking about something like we're probably gonna be looking at a front end loader, right? I mean, in a couple of years.
I had a draft all turned in.
No, that's okay, but I'm just
The
trying
next
to
big
get.
thing we have coming up is in 2 years, I was gonna suggest buying a new 550 or something similar. And after that, it's gonna be the 09 truck, and then the 12 truck, and then a loader, 4 backup.
What's 550, what's?
Yeah, but
It's not
that's
550.
kind of like a 1-ton, so that doesn't scare me.
No.
I mean, all those prices kind of scare me, but I'm talking about one that scares me, really scares me, like $250,000. Like 250. That would be the loader.
Yeah. My plan would be to keep that loader as long as we can, because it doesn't have depth, doesn't have computers, and
Yeah, I know that too.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know that too.
Also, I just want to clarify, you had said using all our reserves.
Yeah.
None of these plans take any money out of the equipment reserve.
How much is it, Darlene? How much is in that now for highway, for wheel fund, for reserve?
I don't know, but we had voted, the voters had approved to use a bunch of it for the dump truck.
Yes.
And we're getting
75, I think it's around 80, I think it's a little over 85. And
Okay.
I just wanna say as well, I'm a little nervous about using a ton of fund balance, just because I don't feel like we know exactly what the state's gonna do with aid this coming in the next couple of years. Yes, I agree you shouldn't pay interest, but it is pretty low rate to be borrowing at. And with the not knowing what's happening with revenues in the near future, I'm just a little nervous about borrowing too much
Well,
from the fund balance.
exactly. Not borrowing the money, not taking a loan, right? If I'm hearing you correct.
No, using it,
Yes.
and the 39,000 would end up coming from, we have quite a, we have a chunk of money in reserve, so that's where the cash is gonna come from, is we have cash and it belongs to all sorts of reserves on the books, but if we needed it to use it to do that, that's where the cash is gonna come from.
And
But
then
again,
once you use it, it's
you come
gone.
into the situation when you need cash, you don't have it. If we keep doing that, it's gonna be a problem.
Yep. Mike,
How much money's in the actual rainy day fund, that is the general fund? Rainy day account?
Is that the uncommitted, the general one that we can use for anything?
I believe so.
Is
It's
that the
called-
one you're referring to?
Well, it was set up,
Okay.
it was
I
set
didn't
up
know if
and called the rainy day account.
Yeah.
Is it more than one?
There's-
Just
Should be,
I was calling
should be
something
10%.
else.
let her
There's
answer.
about 90, I think there's 90,000 in there, but we're going to be using some of that for the salt shed, is my understanding, so
Got it mixed up.
Yep.
you're in the 70s.
That was, I'm sure that there's one that for the general fund. Now, I think the one we're talking about for the, would have been a highway, for the salt shed.
We don't have a rainy day fund in the highway.
We don't have a rainy day in the.
No, but
In
I'm
the
not sure,
highway
I'm not
fund.
sure how we were gonna spend money for the highway out of that. But I don't know the answer. I know there are fund balances in each
I was
one.
under the impression that the rainy day account was somewhere around $115,000 or $120,000.
It's supposed to be 10% of the general fund,
Right, up to,
and I thought we'd gotten it up that high.
yes.
Close this.
And I don't
I
recall
thought we
using
were
it
in the
for.
high 90s, but I didn't look at that before tonight, but I thought we were in the high 90s. And then I was told we were gonna use it to, when you can use the rainy day fund to support highway, you can't go the other way.
That's correct.
But, so that could be used for the highway project. Right now, you're talking fund balance and highway alone, which we potentially will be adding to after this audit is finished. So we won't know that exact balance until they finish up the audit.
We heard,
But right now, there's about 98,000, I believe, is the highway fund balance from the prior year.
we heard Brandon's proposals and we heard his thought. He has a circle around option number 1. Is that correct, Brandon? For you?
Yes, that's correct.
That's what you'd like to see happen. Are there any comments from board members about listening to the proposals and what you guys do? Joe?
Yeah, I think I personally am attracted to option 3 because, Ray, what's our grader payment right now yearly,
Right now, we don't have one.
previously?
Previously, I think it was 38 and change.
So option 3 would still bring down our yearly payment by, call it $4,000. We wouldn't have to use 45,000 out of our reserves, and the 39,000 cash it would take, we'd see most of it back over the course of 7 years.
The payment wasn't in there this budget season for that grader, so you're gonna be upping your budget, that entire payment. You're not decreasing it by $4,000.
Yes, but it's
You're
4,000 less than we saw on our last grader for a payment.
Yeah, but not FY 1920. That's his
Right
point.
now, there's no money in there.
So when
for
we
payments,
start
so-
taking off in these budget discussions, that's almost a penny on the tax rate.
Mhm.
So you gotta beware of what's gonna happen.
That's where the lowest payment would be best.
Although, you still have $93,000 to start. You're not starting at 0 or a minus. You're starting at plus 93 when you go into budget discussion too. So that's important to remember on option 3. You're not using any of the surplus.
I think
Surplus is
we-
still there.
I thought we had one more grader payment in this last budget, right? Remember, it was a back end we found out last minute? I'm pretty sure there's a grader payment in fiscal year 21, or is it 20?
20.
It goes 1920.
It's not,
Okay.
it's not this year. This year's budget's clean.
Okay.
Any other questions about what, John?
The only thing I'd like to, it's a little bit late to look for it tonight, but I'd like to dust off our capital equipment plan. And that, because that had all the equipment when it was scheduled, doesn't mean when we're gonna buy it, but when it was scheduled to be replaced. And then you could look whether 5 years or 7 years makes more sense.
Right.
So are we gonna make a decision on this tonight?
I'd like to, because we gotta start moving on stuff, so.
I'm definitely mostly in favor of either option 1 or 2. I lean more to option 2, even though it costs us about $3,700 more in interest over the life of the loan. It does provide us with the lowest annual payment, which again helps to free up the budget for those 5 years.
7 years.
Option 1,
5
option
years,
2.
2.
Not
Option 2,
7.
I'm sorry, it's 7 years.
Yeah.
That's correct.
But the good news is, the machine is, it's a good number and it's warranted for 7 years, so. But that uses up both, option 2 uses up both half the surplus and cash
Yes.
from somewhere.
So does option 1.
Yep, option 1 does too.
And maybe this is where Ray's going, and I'll let him do his thing when he gets there, but we also held off and only went 5 years on the service, because we might want to dispose of the machine at 5 years, and if we take a 7-year note, are we stepping on our own toes with that?
That's what I was looking at too. I'm most comfortable with option 2 as well.
Just trying to keep up.
However, it's 2 years of additional payments. So with option 1, we're doing exactly what we're doing in option 2, but we're just paying a little bit more annually without that annual payment for 2 years.
Then you
So
also.
at 5 years, it was
I don't
like,
know what's scheduled in years 6 and 7.
Correct.
right, so you guys had discussed exactly that, having the option at 5 years, if this thing's paid for and they come in and appraise it at $300,000, you want to pursue an option at that time, you would not have 2 more payments to worry about. It'd be all cash in the
That's a good
trade.
point.
Yeah, that's.
Well, but we're using a significant amount on either one of those plans available. I mean, $84,000 is pretty strong going into it, that's why.
Well,
And either way, I mean, you're going to be paying $199,000 regardless. So
So I get that.
we've had a lot of conversations at this table about surpluses and directing those surpluses back to the taxpayer. And this is a way that we're using the money to purchase equipment, which, and at the same time lowering the budget need to the taxpayer, which is what we do.
And the question is this the best way to use, in all of the whole budgets for all of the town, is this the best way to use up, not quite 3 cents, but darn close to it on the tax rate?
I understand.
Also, just a note, those payments are coming out of my budget for the next 5 and 7 years to pay those funds back. It's not gone forever.
Well, the loan, just the loan, but the
The
cash is
maintenance,
gone.
the maintenance plan and the
Oh.
warranty plan, those monies would be paid back, right, Brandon?
I mean, the way I look at it is if we don't use the cash now, we're going to use it for something later that probably doesn't collect interest.
But I don't want to confuse cash and surplus. I'm talking about the surplus, which is the 45,000. All options up through 4 use the cash, the $39,000. It's only the first 2 options that use the $45,000 surplus, and the last 2 options, we're financing the whole thing. So the cash is getting used anyway. It's just a matter of whether we want to use that surplus to reduce the annual cost of this machine over the next 5 years or 7 years.
And if you use cash, the payment plan would be, that cash would go back over the course of 5 or 7 years.
That's, yes,
That's the way Brandon had designed it.
right.
What does the board like to do? I mean, if everybody wants to pull each other, I've learned from the hard way that when I have a thing that's warranted for 7 years and I had that money, that I would try to have my annual payments lower in anticipation of something else happening.
So you're leaning towards 2.
Yeah.
I personally am okay with 1 or 2.
Same here.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. We gotta move on.
We need a
So,
motion.
yes, exactly.
I'll make a motion to instruct the town manager to, let me see, how do I want to word this thing? Use finance option number 2 for the purchase of the motor grader.
I'll second it.
Motion been made, seconded to use the purchase option number 2 in the town manager's report. Purchasing is it 2020 or 21 grader?
20.
It is going to be a model year 20?
Yeah, already built.
Any discussion?
I would certainly be willing to go to number 1 if
That's
Anybody
the
here?
that was the
Made
7-year
seconded,
wants to-
vote on it.
2's a 7-year plan.
The option, I mean, the motion has been made and seconded, so we're in discussion.
We're in discussion.
So, John, you made a valid point. Did somebody want to amend it to go back to number 1? I don't know.
Those are 2
Did you
additional
have a
years of
comment?
payments.
I wasn't clarified
Yeah,
number 2, I don't
it makes
think
no
number
sense.
2
It
is
doesn't.
7-year plan.
If we're going to do it.
Number 2 is a
it's
7-year payment.
Number 1 is a 5-year.
Yes.
Yes.
5 years.
It offers the only difference, we're using the same money, using the cash, using the surpluses, half the surplus is a down payment. The only difference is, one of the finances it for 2 more years, What's that?
You're just stretching it out.
Yeah,
Right, well,
there's a little
I have
more
a question.
flexibility on, so instead of an annual payment of $23,000, it's $16,428. So it's $6,500 difference in annual payments.
I have a question.
Yes.
I know I made the second, I seconded it.
Yes.
Right, I don't use these, I don't know, will you want something different? Will you need something different in 5 years? I mean, we,
Different as what?
the greater, we talk,
I would love to have the option in 5 years to look at this and see what the trade-in value is and what a new one would cost. Not that I want something different and new.
because we have
But if
7-year
you
warranty
could-
on this,
If you could
right?
have $325,000 on trade-in that you own, as opposed to have 2 payments left, that just, it kind of,
No, I got you.
you
But
guys kind of mentioned, Joey brought that up last time about the maintenance plan, having it for 5 years.
But to have $32,000, which is, that was what you would owe at the end of a 5-year decision, is not, it's negligible. So it's, you can absorb that.
It's one payment.
Yeah.
And you can pay off the loan early if the numbers work.
Or they incorporate that in the trade. They
That
say,
was-
okay, wait a minute, you've got, same with the car trade.
That was
That's
gonna be my next
my
question.
next question.
It's not a big deal. The key is we made the right move by having a 7-year warranty.
Yeah, if we kept it, we have it.
Yeah, and that's
Okay.
transferable to
Yes.
the warranty itself
Yes.
is, the maintenance plan isn't, so.
Yes.
And we found out that we could extend the maintenance plan to 7 years.
Later,
if
for more money,
we wanted
but
to.
if we decided.
But if you put the loan out over the course of 7 years, you're, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me to pay that long on something if we're talking about getting rid of it in 5.
Well,
And
that-
for the difference in yearly payment, why not save the $3,600 and go to 1? I personally like number 3 because we're not taking away the surplus, that's me. But number 1, if you're gonna give me 1 or 2, 1's the best.
Motion been made, seconded to support option number 2, though, temporarily here. So, any further discussion? Is there an amendment to the motion?
Is there any other support to move to option 1?
My only thing I would move to option 1 if we were in agreement already that we wanted to get rid of it in 5, but.
Yeah, that's not on my table. I wouldn't entertain that. The reason why I wanted a 7-year warranty was that
Yeah.
that we need to think about down the road, about paving, about another dump truck, about the loader, about, I know all that about, but there are other things that are gonna come up on the plate.
Right.
We've already asked about potentially, about learning about whether or not we really wanted a mechanic, a half a mechanic, I don't know that. We're running into stuff where,
I think
Other discussions might
myself
come up.
personally is that you can, I agree with the fact that it'd be nice to have that option, but you've got the 7-year warranty, you are paying for it for that time, but you do have the option to trade it in if you wanted to after 5 years. That is transferable, and just like Dave was saying, or like you do, I mean, done it with a car, you can get some of that back with that. That's my thought, but I don't work with these larger things. I just know my car, so.
Mr. Chairman?
yes, sorry.
There is one other option that we could do. We could enter into option number 2, and that's our obligation. We could calculate our payments to number 1. It reduces the interest, and we still pay it off in 5 years, but with no obligation if the money isn't there.
Pay more.
Yeah, you can't, well, just
Yeah.
like paying off, you're paying either
Or
weekly
pay
or
earlier.
bi-monthly or whatever. we
Yeah,
pay.
I'm not gonna make it that complicated. Let's not
I'm
make
just
it
saying-
complicated for the finance department. It's either if or not.
Yes.
Let's vote on the motion.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sorry.
All those in favor of option number 2, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
So, hold on. Can
You
do a
haven't
roll call
voted yet.
vote?
Exactly. That's it.
Could you do a roll call vote?
Yes.
It makes it easier.
Well, I'll tell you who voted. Paul and Mike voted yes, and Joey and John voted no.
And is the chair gonna vote since there's a split?
Yeah, yes, I am. I am gonna vote.
Drum roll, please.
We blame it on you if it doesn't work.
Yeah,
Ding, 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 ding.
I supported option number 2, and I guess I'm gonna stick with that.
So you're voting in
Yes,
favor of?
yes, yes,
Fine.
yes. Okay, good. Thank you. Let's go on to, we're going from the road grader. It took about a half an hour or 40 minutes to the next one up.
That was the easy one.
Yeah, that was the easy one.
For the record, I'm happy. I think that was a good decision.
Oh, shit. Brandon said for the record he's happy. Write that down.
Put that in a minute.
Well, we'll be a lot happier when we get into budgets and we go, hey, wait a minute, we needed that number. Or,
Yeah.
We know a good grant writer, so we'll find something.
I said and I meant it, that I wanted to leave this tax situation on the agenda until we have resolution, and we're going to. So, has anybody got any questions that either you asked Brandon and we got answers to, or do you have them now, or I know that we have some solutions, but did everybody just feel that you were able to ask him questions, or if you had any? And I'll let him.
Just to clarify, you never said what the next agenda item was.
Oh, it is the 2014 purchase and sales agreement for the attic, or however you want to view the town forest or the agreement. It has to do with a lot of delinquent taxes and property, and I'll let you, not hearing any questions, I'll let you start, Brandon, and then we'll all be able to jump in with questions if we have them.
Okay. So on August 17th, the report was presented to the board and to residents regarding a purchase and sale agreement signed on July 21st, 2014. This report explained the responsibility and authority of the tax collector, examined the signed purchase and sale agreement, including an analysis of the tax collector's findings, recommendations from the tax collector, and recommended next steps from the town manager. On September 8th, the second report was presented to the board and Weathersfield residents, which provided an overview of the first report, identified unsatisfied conditions and contingencies within the purchase and sale agreement, and provided options for the town's next steps. This report briefly went into 3 different options. The purpose of this report is to drill into those options further and explain what each option looks like to guide strategic decision making. As noted above, the previous report briefly explained 3 options. This report combines options 1 and 3 to form a hybrid option. Therefore, this report only discusses 2 different options. The following information is important to keep in mind during deliberation. Number 1, the purchase and sale agreement was signed in 2014 with the intent of recovering the principal amount owed. And at that time it was $41,515 according to the purchase and sale agreement. As of September 17th, this resident owes $28,357.76 in principal, $71,839.61 in interest, and $2,159.64 in penalty. Since 2014, the resident has remained current on her quarterly tax payments. Number 4, interest and penalty only stops accumulating when either A, B, or C below are met. The Board of Abatement waives the taxes owed. Abates the taxes owed. The resident pays the taxes owed, and the tax collector and/or the tax collector holds a tax sale. Between 2015 and 2019, the town spent $27,175 on appraisals, permitting, surveying, legal fees to fulfill this purchase and sale agreement. As of September 17th, 2020, the resident has completed all of her conditions. The town has completed 1/5 of its conditions, and 2/4 of the contingencies are complete. And the contingencies, the purchase and sale agreement is contingent on 4 items. And what that means is if one of those items are not met, the purchase and sale agreement is null and void. Those contingencies are for both the resident and the town. So by law, if a contingency is not met, the purchase and sale agreement can be void.
So, can you go over those? What are the 2, you said 2 of the 4 on that, so what are the 2 that are, I guess, right? Is that, there were 4 conditions?
Yep.
Or not? Did I get that wrong?
There were 4 contingencies. So the resident had 3 conditions to meet. The town had 5 conditions to meet, and then the entire agreement was contingent on 4 contingencies. And I'll pop those open right now.
By the way, I'll comment for the full board. I mean, it is very helpful to see something in black and white that's this detailed for us, whether we agree or not agree, or I'm not sure how much this is gonna stir up, but this is eye-opening for all of us to go through. So I wanna thank Brandon for gathering this much information and getting it in print.
I have contingencies here.
Well, he's gonna go through it. He's
Oh, okay.
gonna-
I've got the contingencies. Contingency 1, the town obtaining all necessary permits, including but not limited to subdivision and wetland permits needed for the subdivision, trailhead, parking lot, and trail. Contingency 2, the removal of the current use lien on the 3-acre parcel. Contingency 3, the release of Emily's existing mortgage for the 3-acre parcel in the easement area. Contingency 4, the town obtaining the right-of-way from Charles Johnson to enable the trail to cross the narrow strip of land owned by Mr. Johnson that is situated between the Abbott land and the town forest. This may necessitate Emily granting Charles an easement, preferably not located in the same location as the town's right-of-way, so that he may cross her land for the purpose of maintaining the spring on his strip of land. Those are the contingencies.
So out of those contingencies, contingency 1 and contingency 4 has not been met. Proposed solution number 1 is a solution we could move forward with and end this tonight.
Okay, hold on. For number 1,
Both proposed solutions would end this issue tonight.
well,
There would be more to it.
yeah, there'd be a recommendation, right, for the board for proposal number 1. You would need I mean, voiding anything is really easy and it's really hard. But number 1, the proposal is that we would actually come to an agreement saying that we were going to have a plan to go before the Board of Abatement. That's right? I mean, in a nutshell, that's where that would be.
Yes.
So, it wouldn't end tonight. It would end with us 5, or with the help of Brandon too, coming up with a package that would go before the Board of Abatement and say, we would like you to do this, here's what it is, or a choice to pretty much abate X amount of dollars.
It would, I guess, let me rephrase, proposed solution number 1 would push us into that,
Yes.
to resolve it. But it would
I
end,
was gonna say, I think
it would
what
end
he's trying to
discussions
say
here.
is that it would end this for us here right now at this time.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be the final done deal, but for right now,
Yeah.
we would be moving forward with this proposal. And there's things that would happen in the background.
Well, I think we'd do an open meeting, but because we'd have to discuss exactly what the proposal would be that we would be backing going into the Board of
And
Abatement.
he's
We're all
got
members.
it right here.
We're all members of the Board of Abatement, just for the record.
Right, how that works.
Huh?
Did we vote on that in there, or did we let the
Yes.
rest of the piece? or-
No, you do.
You
And
can.
and the Board of Abatement includes the listers, that includes the, I think, the town clerk, it includes the Justice of the Peace.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
So
we
it could
can vote
be a
on
group
it.
of 15 people or whatever the amount is.
I think they would follow our lead, but that's an assumption on my part.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. So that's when Mike or Brandon was saying that it could be over tonight. I think we'd have to have a meeting of the minds here to see where we were going to be with that recommendation.
But I think that's what he's
Okay.
trying to get to.
Sorry. Okay.
All right. So proposed solution number 1.
Yep.
This solution will resolve the 2014 purchase and sale agreement by amending the existing agreement. And the goals of this solution are to alleviate the burden placed on the town, provide the resident with resolution, additional time to plan and work on the conditions within the existing agreement without delaying the conclusion of the agreement, and concludes the 2014 purchase and sale agreement. Step number 1, amend the purchase and sale agreement. So condition number 1 says to pay all appraisals, survey, and closing costs. My proposed amendment to this condition would rephrase it and state the resident is not responsible for appraisals, surveying, and closing expenses. So what that would ultimately do is allow us to work on those appraisals, surveying, and so forth in the future, without having to finish them now before the purchase and sale agreement is considered met.
Brandon, can I interrupt? What kind of expenses are we anticipating that we haven't already met?
Right.
And I did not put permitting in here, so to pay all permitting. So we still have wetlands permitting. The parking lot is not, we've never done anything there. So, you know, there could be more, well, there is gonna be more permitting. I don't know whether or not there'll be more appraisals. There could be more surveying. It really depends on whether or not the Johnsons give us the easement, because if they don't, then we have to resurvey the easement and move the easement to the state right of way.
Which is a really not a non-starter for me. I mean, I've read that language and they can pull that back like a yo-yo. So, go ahead.
Condition number 4, to screen the beginning of the trail easement from the Abbott residence using mutually agreed reasonable measures such as trees, bushes, and fencing. Basically, this condition and how it's written is we have to do this before the purchase and sale agreement is valid, before it's done. So my proposed amended condition would be, if the town decides to post a trail as open for public use, the town will screen the beginning of the trail easement from the Abbott residence with trees, bushes, and or fencing. Again, alleviating our burden to act now. It gives us more time to send this to the planning commission and discuss the trails and so forth. Condition number 5, to post the trailhead parking area as open for use only during daylight hours, rather than doing that tomorrow or next week. If the town decides to post a trailhead parking area as open, then the town agrees to post a sign indicating the parking lot is open only during daylight hours. So again, that gives us the ability to open it a year after the purchase and sale agreement is complete, or 2 years after, or it just gives us the ability to think about it more and plan more. Contingency number 1, the town obtaining all necessary permits, including but not limited to subdivision and wetlands permits needed for the subdivision, trailhead, parking lot, and trail. Amended contingency number 1, if costs are incurred for permitting, the resident is not responsible for these costs. So again, allowing us to do that in the future. Contingency number 4, in a nutshell, obtaining an easement from Charlie Johnson. Amended contingency number 4, the town obtaining an easement through parcel number 5155 from Terry Johnson to connect the town's easement from parcel number 50154 to parcel number 50157. So those are my proposed amendments. And then number 2, approve an agreement with Terry Johnson to obtain an easement through parcel number 5155. Ms. Johnson requested a waiver of her $6 quarterly tax payment in exchange for this easement. However, I think it's better to pay in one lump sum. And I believe that's the recommendation of a couple of others. And the annual tax payment is $24, so we could pay for an option is 12.5 years for $300. We pay it for 25 years for a $600 lump sum, or we pay it for 50 years for a $1,200 lump sum, or any other option that the board wants to make. Number 2, the town can purchase the parcel of land and give Ms. Johnson water rights to the property. I haven't discussed this with her yet, but it was one of the things that came to me, and I decided to include it in my report. Ms. Johnson would be responsible for all maintenance and repair on her water line and well, but then the town could ultimately purchase the property outright. Another thing that Ms. Johnson requested is a fence be constructed around her well located on this parcel. So she has a well on this parcel, and if people are crossing the parcel to get into the town forest, she wants to make sure that that well is protected. And I feel like that's reasonable. Does the board have any questions about item number 2?
I do, one.
Go ahead.
Does this mean that we don't need the Abbott property, or is this the easement that's part of this, the Abbott development?
It's landlocked between the Abbott property and the town forest and the
Right.
McDermott's.
Yeah, I understood that.
So,
okay.
yeah,
So
we
this
just-
is just that right-of-way type easement that we need through that piece of property? that
Yeah,
you're
it's the
talking
key to get into the town forest
Okay.
without, it's basically, yeah, it's,
about. I guess what I'm saying is, it doesn't mean that we're done with Abbott's, we just go to the Johnsons and we can get on the property, correct?
yes,
That we still need both properties?
yes.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to make sure of that.
And,
Thank you.
and luckily, the quarterly tax payment is $6. I think that's, it could be a lot worse.
I guess I do have one other question, I wrote it down. If I
Yes.
may. Where does the finance department stand with those 3 proposals for payment? Or 4 or 5, whatever they are, $6, $24, $300, $600, $1,200?
I haven't discussed that with the finance department.
Okay. I just didn't know if they have an opinion on what would be best.
My
Recommend to us.
my opinion is that needs to be forever. You don't make deals 20 years and have a wake-up call saying, nah, I don't feel like letting you across the land. If this deal's gonna get done, and I'm not sure that it
And
is.
it's contingent to the property, whether it sells to somebody else or not.
Exactly.
That's
This is an easement. You're going just like the Abbott one was
I follow
made. This
you.
is forever. This
I
isn't
got
some
you.
20-year tax, because we could have as I told
That's a good
Brandon this
point.
morning, those taxes aren't gonna stay $6. And it's the obligation of the owner to build the fence. I don't feel as though the need to do that. You're buying a right-of-way to go across we're buying 20 or 30 feet, that's it. But to make it a term of
I'm not-
5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, no way.
So under this option, it says the town can offer a lump sum of money to purchase the easement outright. So I was just making the equivalent of 12 and a half years, but we would be purchasing it outright. But in essence, paying the taxes for 12 and a half years, or paying the taxes for 25 years.
Right.
But it is purchasing the easement forever,
Yes.
and it's not gonna expire after 12 and a half years or 25 or 50 years.
Yes.
It was just running those calculations.
Good, because when you make that, we don't wanna make another decision for a surprise for boards, whatever. I mean, suppose this turns out to be the best trails in the whole universe, right? And then in 20 years, somebody said, well, wait a minute, you can't get there. Because the foolish selectmen in 2020 said it was a term.
And they're all dead.
No, they're all gone, yeah.
And they park their loader at the bottom of the hill so you can't go up the trail.
Yes. Perfect.
So
It's 1 minute of 9, move to extend, or somebody needs to make a motion to extend.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Step 3, review the amended agreement with council for the resident. Select board will vote to sign the agreement. The resident's signature will be required. I don't believe there's any changes that the resident would be opposed to. And determine whether there is sewage on the 2.86 acre parcel, so that would be number 4. And if we decide to move forward with this option, then we'll have to do a site visit with the educated parties, take a water sample. If there is sewage, the appraiser will be notified to modify the appraisal. If there is sewage, the homeowner will be notified regarding the town's demands. Step 5, resident files a new application with the Board of Abatement. Step 6, select board writes a letter of support to the Board of Abatement for the resident's abatement request. That's one of the conditions that the town has within the purchase and sale agreement. Step 7, after the delinquent taxes are abated, paid in full, the delinquent tax lien on the resident's property will be removed and the purchase and sale agreement will be complete. The tax collector will no longer be interested in this property. Step 8, the town will have additional work to complete prior to opening the trailhead parking area and trail up leading into the town forest. Maybe I send this over to the Planning Commission for review and see what the Conservation Commission has for comments. I know there's a lot of people out there working on the trails. So conclusion, this option provides immediate closure for the 2014 purchase and sale agreement as far as it's concerned with which option are we going to move with. I anticipate up to $2,000 in additional expenses, which includes coming to an agreement with Ms. Johnson, legal expenses related to amending the purchase and sale agreement and constructing a fence to secure the Johnson's well. If there is sewage, I anticipate the current appraisal of $23,000 decreasing to a number around $10,000 to $15,000. If there is sewage, the resident will need to remedy the issue and pay for any expenses associated with remediation. If we learn there is sewage, I have no record of such disclosure to the town. So that's another thing that we need to consider.
Can I stop you right there?
Yep.
I'm not sure of that because we have, whether we like it or not, there's been a deed transfer to the town. And so the town owns a piece of property, and if it has any kind of material, and that's a big if, on it, it's probably going to be the town's headache. I don't know that we have actionable at this point because there's been a transfer, because that would have happened prior to the transfer. Somebody would have looked into that, and it wasn't. So that is going to be a pretty big stumbling block, because if, and again, at the end of this discussion, I'd like Brandon to try to go forward somehow to figure out if there is any, either through visual or inspection or water testing or I don't know what, because that's a big deal. Because not only would it lower the appraisal, but it would increase the dollar amount of what the town could or couldn't do to make a parking lot.
Yeah.
Do you have a question, Ryan?
I do. I'm a little confused. This is a purchase and sale agreement. How come there was a transfer of deed already? How could that possibly happen if you did?
Because it did happen. There was some things that I didn't know.
Is there speculation the leach field is failing is not on our property but beside it, or is it under our 3 acres? Unknown.
Yes, unknown.
Okay.
And
Now
another.
if it's under it, then it was the whole sale is in jeopardy, I would think.
Well, and the other part is like when we read some things earlier, and I was going to stop Brandon earlier, but I didn't. If let's say that there is a problem, okay, then not only would the town have to face some kind of environmental problem on their property, but the resident would also have to fix, because you look at it like in the ag world, they say it's a point source pollution. So you would go back to the point, to the culprit, or whoever it might be that is actually doing that. Obviously, there's no house there. There's no ability for that land to be generating that kind of material because it's a vacant lot. So they would go. So somebody's going to go back to where that is. Now, when we said, okay, we're going to go into the, I don't know how familiar everybody is with property, but where could you put a leach field that would service that house then? See that you got other issues that are going to surface here. So they're going to be made to satisfy their residents on an environmental issue. And then we also have another one to deal with that could be, whatever that is. So.
And if it's under our 3 acres, she doesn't have an easement to have it there. Therefore, we can demand that she move it.
Right, which would cause a significant financial burden because of the
absolutely.
Of what that is. I mean, you
And
got guide rails and.
Even if it's beside it and she needs to rebuild it. But that's, whether we own it or not, that should be done.
And I don't exactly know where the easement is that we, on that house side of the road, to go up to the trail. That infringes on that ability of the house to build a new leach field.
That's where the wetland permit came in. I think, Dave, the discussion I remember 2 years ago was it's going to be between their house and the McDermott's. Not to where a wetland area was, where we had to get a permit for a trail.
I actually think it was down towards the guide rails. but I think that's where the easement is now. Is that on a map, Brandon?
Yes, it is.
So it's over next to the stone wall, next to the McDermott's, the ability for the town to walk up there. What is it, 30 foot? Is that what the easement is?
Here it is, right here. Sorry, it's upside down.
Yep.
Alright, so this is the easement.
So the residents, okay, so it's right on the stone wall? Yep.
And then
Okay.
This is the 2 acre parcel. I mean, excuse me, this is the Johnson parcel here.
Yeah, so where is though, when you get down there, that map doesn't actually show the house location.
What's the date on this? Okay, 2014. What was that?
Where would you think the house is located? Because
here.
that
So-
drawing is a little hard to follow because you've got Thrasher Road that comes down there. There's really not a lot of road frontage between where the guardrail is at the end of that and the stone wall of the boundary between McDermott and Abbott, and in relationship to the house. I mean, at tops, we're talking about a couple 100 feet. I'm sure I saw something somewhere where it said the easement on that side of the road was something like 30 feet.
Yeah. Here's the easement deed here.
There you go.
Yeah, 30-foot wide trail
Yep.
easement.
Yep, yep. Okay, so, go ahead then. So that my point was, when you get to, on that paragraph, the second paragraph of conclusion, is the board okay with trying to figure out whether or not we have any, either let Brandon do a water test, or how far do you want to go with this to evaluate what may or may not be there? I know there's been a couple of neighbors, they've lived there their whole life. One of them says he's cut the field of hay, he knows there's something there for like a long period of time, and that's the only
Then
reason. that this
Brandon
is-
can do it as health officer if it's
Yes.
surfacing sewage.
That's a good point, yes.
All right.
Of course, it's as dry as it is, and
Yeah, I don't know the answer. But then it would be a ground issue, so I don't think it's hard to figure out.
I would tend to agree.
Go ahead, Brandon.
All right, so if there is no sewage, the remaining principal is broken down as follows. Current principal due, $28,357. The value of the 2.86 acre parcel and easement, $23,000. Jason Smith Road sale, $28.95. Remaining principal, $2,462. So a question I have for the board is, will the $2,462, if the appraisal is lowered due to sewage, whatever the remaining principal is after the appraisal is amended, so this number could increase if the appraisal of the easement and 3 acre parcel decreases.
So I want to stop you just right there, because the original intent, I want all of this board to hear, because 3 of you weren't here when we started. The intent was whether or not we would meet the threshold of the principal that was owed. And if you look back on page 1, I think it says that it was 41,515. So that's how, is that how you got to that number, Brandon?
I don't know how they got to that $42,000 number on our books. The principal is $28,357. I don't know how it decreased. That wasn't here.
Well, but that was on the purchase and sales agreement on the initial contract that said, you know, they actually broke it down.
And a good chunk of that was the sale of the derelict house, and it wasn't anticipated by us that a good chunk of that was going to go to pay the delinquent taxes already due. It was the right thing to do, but at that time we thought we were going to pocket most of that $20,000, and that turned out to not be true.
Yep.
So is there a difference between the original agreement then and how you came up with your findings? Because it would matter to me, because if the threshold's not met by how you came up with a value of the original agreement of 41,515, and it's not anywhere close to being there, that matters to me.
Oh no, I'm not saying it doesn't matter. But on our books, since I've been here as town manager and tax
Oh,
collector.
do you think, John, that some of it's already been applied?
$20,000. Roughly.
Well, not 20.
Well, yeah.
Thirteen.
Well,
because
13.
of
In order
interest and stuff that
In order to sell that house, we had to pay all the back taxes out of the, otherwise couldn't sell it, there'd be a lien on it.
Right.
And I don't think that anybody thought about that at the time. But when the money came in, it had to go to that. Otherwise, we'd be on the plus side instead of the minus side.
No one has been able to find that, Brandon?
No.
It's $13,000. So if you start off with 41,515 and
Oops.
you're now currently at 28,000, it's a $13,000 difference.
She may have been, some of her pay, I don't know. I'll chat with Suzanne tomorrow, but since I've been here, the principal has been broken down. It's always been 28,357. That was the first one that I ran.
Okay, well, keep going then. At the very bottom, I guess, was you left off.
So my question is, what are we gonna do about the remaining principal? Is it gonna be included in the Board of Abatement application? Or if not, is the resident gonna be responsible for paying this in cash? Do we hold a tax sale for that amount of money? So that's just a question to kinda think about as we move forward. So the total amount of delinquent taxes owed as of September 17th is $102,357.01. And this number will increase again on October 14th.
How does it increase? On the
Another
principal?
another quarterly tax payment is due, and more interest and penalty accumulates.
Right, 'cause that keeps going until the principal's paid off.
Proposed solution number 2. This solution will resolve the 2014 purchase and sale agreement by voiding the 2014 purchase and sale agreement and moving forward with a tax sale pursuant to 32 VSA 5252. The goal of this is to recover the delinquent taxes per Weathersfield's policy on delinquent tax, water and wastewater assessment collections, and 32 VSA 5252. It provides both parties with resolution. It treats all taxpayers equally. So the next step would be to void the purchase and sale agreement. The resident's condition number 3 within this purchase and sale agreement was misleading. The condition required the Jason Smith Road property not be sold for less than $20,000. The condition leads the reader to believe $20,000 will be granted to the town to satisfy the delinquent taxes owed. In fact, $15,846 of this $20,000 was directed to the delinquent taxes owed on the Jason Smith property itself to remove the delinquent tax lien on this property.
There it is.
Only $2,217 was directed to the delinquent taxes owed on parcel number 50154.
So what is parcel 50154?
That's the parcel that we have an easement through.
You mean the,
Well, at the time we thought it
House.
was, a small parcel. In fact, it's actually a lot of, it's all of this. And we originally thought it was just here, from what I could find through my investigation, and it's
yes,
actually.
I know, that's part of my problem.
So contingency number 4 in the purchase and sale agreement cannot be met. Charles Johnson was unwilling to grant the town a right-of-way through his parcel, so the only way this contingency can be met is if it's amended. If the Johnsons agree to, if Terry Johnson agrees to the easement. So the purchase and sale agreement is contingent on this. In the legal world, a contingency means the agreement is not satisfied until the condition is met. If the contingency is not met, the agreement is null and void, and the town or the resident can back out without legal consequences. Item C, send the resident a letter explaining the voided purchase and sale agreement. Item D, the select board will need to determine if the 2.86 acre parcel and easement will be granted back to the resident or if the town will pay the resident the appraised value of the 3-acre parcel and easement.
I can't imagine anybody that I would ever run in contact would be that you actually paid the money back after that.
I'm sorry.
Oh, boy.
It's just it's a decision that will need to be made. The resident will file an application to the Board of Abatement as defined in 24 VSA 1535. I anticipate a vote would take place to determine whether the taxes will be abated or not. If the taxes are not abated in full, the tax collector will no longer have an interest in this property.
Well, they are abated, are not. If
The
they
taxes
are abated.
are abated in full. If the taxes are not abated in full, the tax collector will move forward with a tax sale pursuant to 32 VSA 5252. This option gives the town the opportunity to treat all taxpayers equally and enforce Weathersfield's policy on delinquent tax, water, and wastewater assessment collections, which is the standard for all other taxpayers in Weathersfield. This option comes with consequences. We've already spent $27,000 on appraisals, permitting, surveying, legal fees, and hours of staff time have been directed to fulfill this purchase and sale agreement. So that's one of the big decisions to make. As tax collector, I am obligated per policy and law to support this option. Although the intent of the purchase and sale agreement was to satisfy the principal amount of delinquent taxes owed, it still does not come close to the total amount of taxes owed. Since I have been tax collector, I have strictly enforced Weathersfield's policy on delinquent tax, water, and wastewater assessment collections and 32 VSA 5252. Since this time, I have collected principal, interest, and penalties from Weathersfield residents according to this policy. I take into consideration the length of time interest and penalties accumulated between the time the purchase and sale agreement was signed in 2014 to date. During this time, both parties failed to meet their conditions until March of 2020. The difference between the amount that was due in 2014 when this purchase and sale agreement was signed until today is $16,357. Therefore, as tax collector, I will only support a Board of Abatement application for $16,357. However, my support isn't required.
How did you come up with that number?
It's the difference between the $86,000 that was due in 2014 and the total amount of taxes owed to date, which is $101,000.
And how much of that do you think is, since we don't charge interest on interest or penalty, is that, what would you think that is, how did that's not principal, is it?
It's interest and penalties.
All $16,000 is all interest and penalty?
Yes.
And the balance would be due to the town.
Of
That's
what?
what he's saying.
And the balance would be due to the town.
The 102,000 minus the 16, right?
I would support a Board of Abatement request for $16,357.
So the total balance left would be due to the town. In other words, you'd be moving towards
But what
tax sale
happens?
or something to collect it.
Maybe I missed it, but what happens maybe on the front one, then the deeds, everything goes backwards.
That's gone.
You give back the deeds,
You avoid
Yeah,
it.
we hold a tax sale, and that 3-acre parcel and that easement would be included in that tax sale.
And the town would
but there'd have to be a transfer prior to that happening, because you wouldn't have a tax sale on town property.
No, you just put it
First.
No, you just put it up for sale. You
Yeah,
don't
we-
have a tax sale, you just put it up
We
for
could
sale.
sell it along with the
Right.
property, we could keep it,
You just grant it back.
yeah,
to the resident.
grant it right back to the resident.
Is there any more information that goes along with these decisions?
I believe we have every piece of information that could possibly be known at this point. If there is something else that's discovered later, I can't imagine what it would be.
Well, it could be an environmental surprise,
Well, besides that, of course, but
but no, not on the money and the taxes and the decisions that were made, probably not. Probably we've gone over pretty
And one of those options you talked about, Terry Johnson, who now is the legal owner of that property,
Yes.
and you already talked to her. Basically, the first couple of options, the $6 and so on and so forth, that's already, she said, yes, I would give you an easement if this happened.
I didn't discuss money with her. She talked about waiving the taxes forever. I'm talking about a lump sum amount being paid, and then an easement being granted
Right, because
forever.
I mean, this whole thing stems on whether you get that or not. Because I mean, I don't think anybody's is liking the state's idea there.
I don't
And-
trust them.
No, me either. And the other thing that I don't like, and I don't want to set I don't want to set a precedence is oh yeah, well we need something from you, so we'll just get rid of your taxes. I don't like that. Not that it's you. You gave options. I just meant I'd like to. I mean, ideally it'd be nice even in the beginning with this thing, and we'd have just said, okay, we'd like something. We're going to purchase a legal easement. Here's a value of what this easement is. What you do with the money afterwards is your problem. If you pay the taxes, fine. If you don't, then that's fine too. But we're not going to. We're not saying this is for taxes because that's.
Yeah.
Mike, did you have a question?
This is about the purchase of land or abatement of, in acquiring. It has legal implications. My question is, can this board legally enter into an executive session to deliberate the points of order here? And would that be appropriate considering all the legal ramifications that are involved with the actions?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that one of the things that we need to be most careful of is the treatment of a delinquent tax problem, regardless of how small or how large, to be equal to all people that are now having agreements with Brandon that are paying all principal, penalty, and interest.
I could not agree more.
Myself included.
The difference with what you just said and what we're dealing with now, a lot of at least part of it, is the town's responsibility for not pushing forward at a rapid pace to complete the purchase and sales agreement.
No argument there. Again, we have legal issues to discuss. And my question would be, and maybe for Brendan to find out through our town council, can we enter into an executive session for deliberative purpose? Actually, it would be deliberative session.
Have
not
been
executive.
litigation and early litigation.
And we're not purchasing.
Right.
We're dealing with a known
Yep.
account receivable. That's about what it is.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
I don't know.
And you
I'm
don't go into
following.
executive session for convenience.
no.
Well, deliberative session, not executive session.
Okay.
Deliberative session.
That's what you're
We
saying.
can't.
Which is, they're different.
It's a contract.
Oh.
It is a contract.
Yes,
so
it's a contract.
it is a contract.
That's true.
It is a contract.
All I can say is I'm sick of looking in the rearview mirror on this.
Yeah, I am too.
I want to see resolution come to this somehow, one way or another. I'm in agreement with you, John and Dave, and what you just said.
And both parties entered into this in good faith, and it just went to hell in a handbasket. And most of it is because of the time lag.
But if we don't discuss that anymore, we just look at the numbers that are in here in print in front of us.
Yep.
It is, according to what Brandon got, and he did all the work, it's short on principal. And
Correct.
I don't care if it's a dime. The original agreement said that we were going to meet that burden and then forgive the interest and penalty. It hasn't met that burden. It hasn't met the burden of what the information that he's gathered. Now, whether or not, if there's too much water over the bridge or under the bridge, but we have to notify the resident that the burden of the principal in the original agreement has not been met. The choice clearly could go to that as opposed as a question from the town without going to the Board of Abatement. the amount that Brandon has just got of like $2,400 and something dollars, at least from the numbers that he did, and to ask what 2462.67, and not, well, if you're gonna go that far, I suppose, then you're gonna allege that then the deal is complete if you give us a check for that amount of money, and then you're also alluding to the fact that the Board of Abatement would grant a abatement of about $85,000 or more. And that would get back to the original agreement of what was being proposed at the time. But the threshold of the principle has not been met.
Well, there's more money to be spent. We're gonna have to spend money on an easement. We're gonna have to spend money on creating this parking lot.
Yes.
This is a nice thing where you could use trails, but it's not a money generator for the town by any means.
I don't think it ever was thought of as a money generator.
No, but what I'm getting, absolutely, nobody's gonna pay to go walk on a trail.
We got proof of that. We've already spent $27,000.
That's my point. That's my point.
But there are ways that it could stir some economic development.
And enhance the community.
Yeah, but
Brandon and I are talking about that in economic conversations, so.
Is it a toll road?
No, it's trail.
Oh, it's gonna be a toll trail?
Yes.
Okay, nice.
paid parking.
And there's gonna be zip
And
lines.
what's the estimate of the parking lot?
Saddles.
Do we know what the estimate of the parking lot's gonna be?
Depends on what kind of parking lot.
You gotta strip all the loam off and put gravel in or something.
That's what I'm saying. Is it 50,000?
I don't think it'll be that high, but I'm sure.
Well, and there's
Yeah,
grants
tar.
and stuff like
You gotta
that.
figure out if there's wetlands, you gotta figure out if there's sewer, you gotta figure
Yeah,
out.
there's a lot of
variables.
question marks over that, putting on a parking lot right there.
Well, that's-
Yeah, there is.
right.
Setback from the state lane.
Do we need another
Let's
extension to
kick
do
this
something?
can down for one more meeting. We're just sitting here looking at each other right now.
Do we need another
See if we can get the
extension?
sewer
No, no,
thing
let's see what
in.
I'm afraid to
We
say.
didn't save time limit.
Oh,
We're gonna, yes, you're gonna be trying to get a water test or a ground test or environmental test, or is the board happy with him spending a little bit of money to do that?
Yes.
yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
I did get Wayne Johnson's cell phone number, and I gave that to you, Brandon, right? I mean, he was the one that was
Yep.
saying yes, yes, and Herman's always there.
If
Yeah.
you don't mind, just shoot
I
me
s-
a text with the number again.
Yeah.
I wrote
I-
it down somewhere.
I suspect that, walking, if Brandon gets a meeting, he could notify us if we wanted to show up or not, just to see as a site
I
visit.
think that'd be helpful.
That's okay, yeah. Let's go there, so we need to find out more information, I guess, on that. But at any rate, if that does materialize, it makes that case what I just said worse, because the appraisal will go down,
Yep.
the amount of principal
The
will go
difference will
up.
be, yep.
So do we even go down that path then at all?
Well, what's the choice? Is the choice option number 1 or 2?
Option 2, I think.
Somebody's making a motion?
That wasn't a motion. That
Well,
was discussion.
that's what we need.
Well, we need a motion on the floor to discuss.
Okay.
Option number 2 blows the whole thing up.
Yeah.
I liked it. I thought we were gonna get option like 2.5 or something when it said in the front of this, it said we have a hybrid between option number 1 and 2. But to have a hybrid of option number 1 and 2 means that I think that there's gonna be burden on the resident to contribute more money. That's what I think is going to happen.
With
each-
option number 2?
A lot more.
No, a hybrid between
No,
the two.
no, I don't think a lot more, unless, well, if it does surface, well, but they're gonna have another problem. If something surfaces environmentally, they're gonna have to correct that problem, because it would come anyway.
But is
So-
it, whose land is it? It's ours, right?
No. The burden would shift because we own the deed, and there's no easement for septic to come across the street onto the town property. We wouldn't accept more.
Right,
There'd be
right.
burden on the resident to develop their own system on their
Right.
own land.
Right, if it's there for that.
Yes.
And nothing prevents the Abbots from coming into the Board of Abatement on their own
Yeah, right.
and asking for an abatement of the whole kit and caboodle.
There's no need to though, John, right now. They're covering other
No, right
taxes.
now, you're right, but if we exercise option 2, they're gonna owe the full amount.
Yep.
Interest, penalties, everything.
But the problem is, there's been deed transfers.
I know.
So,
So what do we do with the 3 acres we own that may or may not have a septic system next to it or under it?
well, we may, at some moment in time, after we get a study about what's there, we may wish we had turned it back before we knew that. I'll tell you that right now.
That's correct.
We may be careful of what we wish for. Yes, Mr. Todd?
Brandon, the town manager's our tax collector. Does the town manager have a recommendation? Besides option 1 or 2, do you have a preference as the tax collector?
I'd like to just reiterate this one more time. As a tax collector, I'm obligated per policy and law to support holding a tax sale on this property
Right.
and voiding this agreement. Additionally, I took an oath of office for the state of Vermont to do equal right and justice to all persons to the best of my judgment and ability according to law.
Wow. So if we do anything other, are we putting him in a,
Not really.
no?
Well, we can't make, only the Board of Abatement could make a decision on
Well,
this.
Yeah.
We can't make a decision about whether or not we choose to let him follow his policy or not.
Right.
He's gotta do his job.
That's right.
He probably could do his job without us.
That's what I
He
was
probably
just,
could say, you know what, Selectman,
That's-
I'm doing my job and I don't care what you say.
that's what I was gonna ask right now. Shouldn't he kind of?
I don't
be
know
doing
that. I don't know that we have any authority over him unless we say, well, you're not doing your job and you're fired.
Yeah, I'm not saying that.
No, but I'm not either, but I'm just saying that what's our role here? We can't overstep
That's
his.
why I'm asking that question.
He's the
It's
health
our role to
officer, which you
support the town
pointed out
manager.
about anybody in town. He's the health officer.
Right, so
do
he
stuff
can go
on
check
his
on that and find out what's going on with that.
own. But he's also the tax collector,
Right,
and
and
according to
can-
the policy, he's already looking the other way. I don't know. What were you gonna say, Mike? Nothing?
As usual.
My granddaughters always look at me when they say that. I say, "What are you doing?" They say, "Nothing." I always know that there's something.
Thank
I'll
you.
make a
Thank you,
motion to
Brandon.
support proposed solution number 2 and support the town manager's decision.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to support option number 2 according to the report. Of the tax collector dated September 21st, 2020 on the 2014 purchase and sale agreement between the Abbott residents and the town of Weathersfield. Any discussion?
I just want to state that this doesn't mean that I don't support in some way, shape, or form gaining access to that town forest and moving forward with trails and stuff like that. I know that there's a lot of work being done, but this is just to me a mess. And I think we need to, instead of kicking it down the road, we need to kick it in the pants for a solution, and that's what this does.
Yeah, option 2 also gives them the opportunity to go to the Board of Abatement without all this other contingencies
It
and
could go away
variables
anyway.
and maybe this and perhaps that. I mean, the Board of Abatement might be willing to do something with them and let us keep our hands out of it.
I think our hands are in it.
You guys are the Board of Abatement, aren't you?
Huh?
Yeah,
You
we're
are
part of
going
it,
to
yeah.
be-
There's-
Well,
there's more than just
some.
us.
We're on it.
The problem is with the deed transfers that's already happened. They'd have to be undone. It would cost the town money to get Nate Stearns to say, we can keep that back.
Did they have to accept it back?
I think we're headed to court.
That might be, well, I don't know, what's that?
There was a good faith effort on both parties, and I think it's up to us to make it complete.
So when you say that, what does that mean?
Option 1.
But what do you do with the shortfall in principle?
Has to have it abated.
Yeah, I don't support that.
No, I can understand that.
Because I know for a fact of people that would be very upset of a principal, including myself, abatement even after this time or any time, because then I would say, why not me? That would trigger a legal debate.
Sure.
We could try to explain it to the Abbots or whoever is cognizant enough to actually understand this mess and see if they do want to kick it in.
That would be the only way. Did you have a question, Ray?
I did. Is there any possible way of the change that's left over to meet the principal that was owed is still owed for taxes?
The what?
The money you owed, they needed to come up with what, $24,000 to pay it for the house sale?
Well, there's going to be a difference of opinion here, but it may be. If
It's not being met. The money that's not being met would still be owed, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
Or it could be abated.
Yes. There's a
Appointment as a tenant.
Or it
Yep,
could be.
yep. There's the motion been made and seconded to approve option number 2 for this. Is there any further discussion? Haven't heard anything from you, Paul.
I know. So,
This is why you get paid so much to do this.
right, no, absolutely, I just, for the record, I mean, this is the last time we got this information was the first time that I really got any good handle on any of this, so, you know, you guys have been here a little bit longer and been dealing with it, so that's all. I'm
Actually
you know,
not, because this is the first comprehensive look that we've
Well,
had that's been put
absolutely,
together in a
but,
package.
yeah, I agree.
Ever, I think.
Total. No, you're right.
Ever.
I don't want to kick it around any longer either, but I'm not 100% sure where I stand yet. I might in 2 seconds when you ask for a vote, though. I don't know.
Well, the vote's here. I think that,
Can I mail it in?
what's that?
Yeah.
Leave it in the box.
It's a box, it'll be 4 feet deep out in the yard. We're gonna jump in it.
I mean, do we wanna ask for, I know there's a motion in a
Yeah.
second, but
No, I'm into discussion.
do we wanna look at a hybrid now that we've talked about that just a little bit, just to see to the fact of, I agree, we can't keep kicking it down and we've gotta do something and we've gotta be fair and equitable across the board. I don't like how it was done to begin with, and that's just my opinion, but I can't change that, that's
History.
history. We gotta deal with what we got now. So, in order to bring up to that point of because their part of the agreement was, it was going to be a value equal to, and it's not. So we have that. I mean,
That's exactly right.
yeah.
There
so-
was the obligation was, and the problem is, as John said, who's gonna remember what was on the agreement? But the agreement is there for them to look at, and if it's short, after the town has met its obligations of appraisals and whatnot, then it's in black and white
Yeah.
to see. So, the choice is, like Joey said, for them then to go, instead of saying that, and Brandon would have to draft a letter saying, if this passes, he would have to draft a letter saying the reasons why, right?
And the
You would have to notify the Abbots that this is the reason why. It's
Yeah.
still short and so forth. At that point, Joey's right, they could come to the Board of Abatement and say, we'd like to appeal that decision or whatever by that, to go to the Board of Abatement to say, can you forgive that and still hold the agreement?
Yeah, they
Yes.
could ask for that part too.
And still hold the agreement.
Why not? If
Option
you were-
2 basically throws the agreement out the window.
Yeah,
But you
but
could
they could,
renegotiate.
could be able to come back and say, wait a minute, why did you do that? We wanna have a hearing why, or their attorney would. And if it's short by $2,500, then that would be the reason why. And they'd say, are you sure you wanna do that? Cause here's a check for $2,500 and now we'll make it whole.
It's possible it starts this whole thing all over again at square one, but we have a lot more information to work with and knowledge and direction to proceed into.
But what it doesn't erase is the fact we own 3 acres of land. We pocketed some money from that house sale and we have an easement, which is complete.
We didn't pocket any money, we paid,
Yeah, we
it
did.
went to
Like
delinquent taxes.
There was some, but it was only a couple $1,000
Yeah,
excess,
it was a
right?
handful of thousands, yeah.
But we did pocket some, not a lot, but some.
I don't know, the way I look at it is the appraisal of the 3-acre parcel and easement was $23,000 that was deeded to the town. The town spent $27,000 in good faith trying to fulfill this purchase and sale agreement.
So we're in the hole.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yep.
do something here that I don't normally do. I'm gonna ask that we just table the motion, and, but we have to, John. I know.
I agree.
And here's why. I mean, it's easy to say blow it up, okay? And I'll vote for it to blow it up, whatever, but I don't think that's the answer. There's a couple of things that have materialized that may connect the dots. Number one, the original, player that kind of held up the easement, that would have been a stop for me, is now gone.
Correct.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's kind of a material change.
It is.
But there also could be a surprise in that the resident may find out that they need to put a new leach field in, which would give leverage to keep another possible venue of option on the table a little bit later. So we need to find out whether or not there's an environmental problem on the 2.8 acres.
So what do you need a?
I think we should
Do you
table
need a
the
motion to
motion.
table then, or, I mean, you've got a motion on, how do you handle that one,
You could withdraw the motion.
Yeah, you can do that too.
if they
The
want?
motion to table supersedes the motion that's on the
Okay.
floor. I'll make the motion to table this until the next meeting.
And I'll second it.
I don't think there's any discussion on tabling the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
2 nays?
Sorry, guys.
3-2, did you get that for us to table?
So can I just quickly, Brandon is gonna go look at this.
Wait, point of order. Just real quick, if I may.
Sure.
And that is that this motion being tabled, according to Robert's Rules of Order, makes this the first item on the agenda at the next scheduled meeting.
Thank you, that's good.
You know what I think we should do? You know what I think we should do when these are getting like way too late and way too drawn out? What, is anybody gonna object to having a special meeting to decide this if we get the information from Brandon?
No,
Good, because that's what I'm gonna do.
Not object.
not at all. It's important enough. I
Because
feel
if
it.
he can get that like in another week, then we're not
Yeah.
gonna disturb a regular meeting, because we're gonna get into fire departments.
No, I'm fine.
That'll be
with that.
fun.
Out of the frying pan.
Into the fire.
But there's a lot of stuff here. I mean,
Yeah, there
there's
is.
a lot of
Well, we're
stuff.
recovering how many years of
Yeah.
non-action?
Yeah, I
No,
know.
we're gonna,
I mean, I don't wanna kick her on either,
well, there could be if that environmental thing comes up, then that could be a serious
but that's what I was
stumbling
asking.
block.
There's 2 things Brandon's gonna do, or actually 3 things, I think, if I'm wrong, sorry. He's gonna check on the septic, he's gonna find out what monies and how we can do the easement from Terry Johnson.
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah?
Yes.
And are you going to talk about, are you gonna send a letter or anything to the Abbotts about the fact that they may not be in compliance with that one section about the actual money that's owed versus what compensation we've gotten so far, and there could be a few thousand discrepancy, or we're
Not yet.
Not yet,
No,
okay.
not
yet.
Just the 2 things then.
Not yet, yes.
Yep, I just wanted to know, and if you do a site visit there, please let us know in case any of us wanna be there. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, good. Did we take a vote on the motion? Yes, the vote's already in the motion table. Okay, let's go to, there are no appointments, right? Nothing. How about the warrants, please?
Make motion to approve warrant article September 21st, 2020, general fund payroll, $17,648.33, operating $28,523.09, highway payroll, $7,268.08, operating $35,989.06. Solid waste payroll, $1,697.60, operating $13,713.78. Library payroll, $1,931.10. Grants, $431.50. Oh, good. Payroll total, $28,545.11. Operating, $78,558.44.
It's $658.
$658.44.
Second.
Motion been made, seconded to approve the warrant dated September 21st, 2020. Any discussion? No, nothing from anybody? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good. You guys have planning board meetings on Mondays, so.
Yeah, next Monday.
Yeah, but, so, if, we'll find out when when, or how much, how fast, or whatever we can do to get any tests back from Brandon to do that, so we obviously don't wanna meet next Monday, right? I mean, suppose it takes like 3 or 4 days for him to get the, whatever this back for information.
Hey, just not Monday.
Okay.
Yeah, just on Monday. I don't, when's our other meetings? I don't remember.
Wednesdays, but it's only the third Wednesday of every
Yeah,
month,
yeah, so we're good. No, whatever, yep, just, we'll do it.
Are we still, are you still in executive session for personnel?
Yes.
Okay, well, need a motion to do that.
Make a motion to go into executive session per PBS, what is it?
313.
313, executive session for personnel.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let's sign the warning so that we
Don't forget.
forget that.